Willow Creek was a small, tranquil town where everyone knew each other. In the cozy Miller household, life was about to change irreversibly. Sarah Miller was in the kitchen preparing dinner when the phone rang. She answered, expecting her friend Lisa, but the voice on the other end was Dr. Harper's with a grave and serious tone. "Sarah, can you and Jack come to the hospital now? We need to discuss the test results." Sarah's heart raced. She called Jack, who was in the bedroom, and together they went to the hospital. The waiting room felt cold and distant as they awaited Dr. Harper's arrival. When she finally appeared, the doctor's face revealed the gravity of the situation. "Sarah, Jack, please come in," said Dr. Harper, leading them to a small consultation room. She closed the door and sat down, taking a deep breath before beginning. "Jack, the results of your test showed something very serious. You have a rare terminal illness called progressive neurological degeneration syndrome. It's a highly aggressive condition, and unfortunately, there's no cure." Sarah felt like the ground was opening beneath her feet. Jack, always strong and resilient, seemed like a shadow of himself. He squeezed Sarah's hand, trying to be the rock he always was, but the pain in his eyes was unmistakable. "How much time do I have, doctor?" Jack asked, his voice trembling. "It's hard to say for sure, but without treatment it could be a matter of months," Dr. Harper replied, with a look of profound compassion. As they left the hospital, the silence between them was deafening. Noah, only 8 years old, and Emily, 15, were at home with their grandmother. Sarah wondered how she would tell them, how she would explain that the father they adored was dying. Arriving home, Sarah called the children into the living room. Jack sat in the armchair, looking at the family photos scattered around the room. He took a deep breath before speaking. "My dear ones, we need to talk about something very important," Jack said, his voice filled with emotion. "I'm sick, and the doctors say there's no cure." Noah looked at his father with wide eyes, not fully understanding. "But you'll be okay, right, Dad?" Jack swallowed hard, trying to hold back tears. "I'll fight with all my might, son, but we need to be strong, together." Emily, tears streaming down her face, ran to her room, unable to deal with the news. Sarah followed her, trying to console her daughter. "Emily, sweetheart, I know this is hard. We're all scared, but we need to support each other now more than ever," Sarah said, embracing her daughter tightly. "It's not fair, Mom. Why is this happening to us?" Emily sobbed, anger and pain mixing in her voice. Sarah had no answers. She only knew they needed to face this battle together. Silent tears streamed down her face as she looked at a family photo, remembering the happy moments and wondering how they could survive without Jack. The overwhelming responsibility weighed on her shoulders, knowing she needed to be strong for everyone. The first night after the diagnosis was an endless nightmare. Sarah and Jack stayed awake, holding each other, fearing what the future held. Jack tried to comfort her, whispering promises that he would fight until his last breath. "I love you, Sarah. We'll get through this together," he murmured, as she cried in his arms. That night, Sarah made a silent promise to herself. She would do everything in her power to save Jack and keep the family together no matter the cost. The weeks following Jack's diagnosis were a whirlwind of medical consultations and expensive procedures. Sarah spent hours at the hospital trying to comprehend the complex experimental treatments that could give Jack a fighting chance. Each new hospital visit seemed more disheartening than the last. One Thursday afternoon, Sarah met with the hospital administrator, Mr. Perkins. He was a middle-aged man with a cold, calculating gaze, showing no compassion as he explained the astronomical costs of the treatments. "Mrs. Miller, the medications and experimental treatments your husband needs aren't covered by insurance. The total cost would be around $500,000 with no guarantees of success," he said, devoid of any emotion. Sarah felt a lump in her throat, struggling not to cry in front of the man who seemed indifferent to her family's pain. We don't have that kind of money. What are we supposed to do?" Mr. Perkins just shrugged. "There are financing options and loans, but you should be aware of the risks. It's a significant sum." Desperate, Sarah mortgaged the house she and Jack had built with so much love and effort. The bank manager, a man named Mr. Collins, got straight to the point, making it clear that the chances of keeping the house were slim if they couldn't pay. "Mrs. Miller, I understand this is a difficult decision, but you need to be prepared for the consequences. If you can't pay, you'll lose the house," he said, signing the papers with a finality. At school, Noah was facing his own hell. Bullying became a daily torment. The cruel boys made cruel jokes about his father's illness, calling him an orphan in training. Noah, who had always been a cheerful boy, became withdrawn and vulnerable. One day, after another round of taunts, he came home with swollen eyes from crying. "Mom, why are they so mean to me? I didn't do anything wrong," Noah said, sobbing. Sarah hugged her son tightly, trying to convey some comfort. "I know, sweetheart. People can be cruel when they don't understand others' pain, but we'll overcome this, together." Meanwhile, Emily, who had always been an exemplary girl, started rebelling. She skipped classes and got into trouble, believing that her father's situation was a divine punishment. One night, after Sarah received a call from the school about Emily's behavior, they had a heated argument. "Emily, why are you doing this? We don't need more problems," said Sarah, exasperated. "It's not fair, Mom. It feels like we're being punished for something. I can't stand seeing Dad suffer anymore," Emily cried, tears streaming down her face. Desperate to find a solution, Sarah relied on the support of Lisa, her best friend and dedicated nurse. Lisa risked her job to provide experimental medications to Jack, often sneaking supplies from the hospital without permission. On one such occasion, they met in the hospital parking lot. "Lisa, I don't know how to thank you. You're risking so much for us," said Sarah, holding Lisa's hands with gratitude. "You do the same for me, Sarah. Jack deserves a chance." "We all do," replied Lisa, her voice firm and determined. Pastor Thomas from the local church was also deeply involved. He led a fervent prayer chain, uniting the entire community in a spiritual battle for Jack's life. Every Sunday, the church was packed with people of all ages, praying and singing hymns of hope. But even Thomas's faith was shaken when his own daughter, Sophie, fell mysteriously ill. He found himself questioning his own spiritual path, but he continued to lead the prayers, believing that God had a greater purpose. The daily challenges seemed endless, but Sarah refused to give up. Amidst the chaos and pain, she found strength in those around her and, above all, in the hope that a miracle could still happen. Each day, Jack grew weaker, and the pressure on Sarah intensified. On a cold winter morning, as she prepared for yet another exhausting day, Sarah received a phone call that could change everything. "Sarah Miller, this is Mrs. Thompson from Jackson Pharmaceuticals. We have a job opportunity at our Denver branch that could be perfect for you. The salary and benefits are substantial," said the voice on the other end of the line. Sarah almost dropped the phone. A job in Denver would mean financial stability they desperately needed, but it would also mean leaving Jack behind in his final moments. She thanked Mrs. Thompson and promised to consider the offer. That night, Sarah sat beside Jack, watching him sleep. He looked so fragile, so different from the strong man she knew. Silent tears streamed down her face as she pondered over the job offer. "I can't leave you, Jack," she whispered, gripping his hand tightly. "But how will I save our family without this opportunity?" As she wrestled with this impossible decision, Sarah began having disturbing visions in her dreams. One night, she dreamed of an angelic figure enveloped in a bright light, whispering words of comfort and guidance. "Sarah, you are not alone. Believe in the power of love and faith," said the figure, its voice echoing in the depths of Sarah's mind. Sarah woke up drenched in sweat. feeling a strange mix of peace and fear. She decided to visit Pastor Thomas for advice. In the church, she found Thomas kneeling, praying silently. "Pastor Thomas, I need your guidance. I've received a job offer in Denver, but it would mean leaving Jack here," Sarah said, her voice choked with emotion. Thomas looked at her with understanding eyes. "Sarah, sometimes God puts us in difficult situations to test our faith and strength. You must follow your heart and trust that, regardless of your decision, God will be with you." Meanwhile, Emily was discovering something that could change everything. Ever since she found Jack's guitar stored in the attic, she began playing, finding solace in music. One night, while Sarah was in the kitchen, Emily approached, holding the guitar. "Mom, I want to show you something," Emily said, sitting in the living room. She began playing a sad and beautiful melody, her notes resonating with the pain and hope the family was experiencing. Sarah stopped what she was doing, tears flowing freely as she listened to her daughter play. "Emily, this is beautiful. You have an incredible talent." Emily smiled shyly. "There's a music contest in town. I want to participate and win. Maybe we can get money to help Dad." Sarah hugged her daughter tightly. "Let's do this together. You can make a difference." Emily entered the contest, and her performance touched the hearts of everyone present. The notes of her music told the story of her family's struggle, and her voice conveyed a depth of emotion that resonated with the soul of every listener. After the performance, a music producer, Michael Reed, who had also survived a terminal illness, approached Emily and Sarah. "Your music is powerful. I want to help you. Let's organize a benefit concert." The concert became a monumental event. The local media covered Emily and her family's story, and people from all over the city and beyond rallied to help. The night of the concert was magical. Emily played her songs with an intensity that brought tears to the audience, and Sarah, watching from the side of the stage, felt a glimmer of hope reignite. The event raised enough funds to cover Jack's treatments, and for a brief moment, the Miller family felt like the worst was finally passing. But Sarah knew the road ahead was still long, and her decision about the job still weighed heavily on her heart. That night, while Emily and Noah slept, Sarah sat beside Jack, who was now connected to various medical devices at home. She held his hand and made a silent promise. No matter what happened, she would fight with all her might to keep the family together and find a way to save Jack. The benefit concert had been a resounding success, but the joy was short-lived. A few days later, Jack slipped into a deep coma. Sarah stood by his side, her heart crushed by the pain. The doctors had no good news. "Sarah, we've done everything we can. It's time to consider the possibility that Jack may not wake up," said Dr. Harper, sadness in her eyes. Sarah looked at Jack's pale face, unable to accept that he was slipping away. "I can't give up on him. Jack is still here, I know it," she said, her voice trembling with a mixture of despair and hope. Determined to fight to the end, Sarah organized a vigil at the church, where the entire community gathered to pray for Jack. That night, the church was filled, people of all ages holding candles and praying in unison. Pastor Thomas led the prayers, his voice echoing through the church walls. "Lord, we ask for a miracle for our dear brother Jack. Give us a sign of your grace and mercy." As the vigil continued, Sarah knelt beside the altar, her hands trembling. "God, please don't take Jack away. We need him. I need him," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, Sarah had a clearer vision of the angel who had visited her in her dreams. The angelic figure appeared before her, enveloped in a bright light. "Sarah, your faith and love have touched the divine heart. Believe in the power of prayer and miracles," said the figure, before disappearing. At that exact moment, a sense of peace enveloped Sarah. She knew that something extraordinary was about to happen. As everyone continued to pray, A gentle light filled the church, and a reverent silence fell over the congregation. At the hospital, Jack, still in a coma, began to show signs of life. His fingers twitched slightly, and a monitor started beeping. The nurse on duty rushed to call Dr. Harper. "He's responding! Jack is responding!" the nurse shouted, her voice filled with surprise and joy. Sarah, feeling a wave of hope, rushed to the hospital. When she arrived, she found Jack still weak but conscious. He looked at her, his eyes filled with tears. "Sarah, I saw a light. It was so bright, so welcoming. And I heard a voice saying it wasn't my time yet," Jack said, his voice hoarse but full of life. Sarah fell to her knees beside Jack's bed, holding his hand tightly. "Oh, Jack, you've come back to us. I knew you would," she said, tears of joy streaming down her face. The news of the miracle spread quickly. Newspapers, television programs, and social media covered Jack's story, inspiring millions of people around the world. The faith and resilience of the Miller family became a symbol of hope for all those facing insurmountable challenges. That night, the Willow Creek Church was once again filled, this time with people celebrating the miracle. Pastor Thomas stepped up to the pulpit, his voice filled with emotion. Today, we witnessed the power of faith and love. Jack is alive, and his recovery is a miracle that reminds us that God is always with us, even in the darkest moments. Sarah, sitting beside Jack, felt a wave of gratitude envelop her heart. She looked at her children, Emily and Noah, and saw in them the strength and hope that had sustained them. They had been through hell, but now they were ready for a fresh start. With Jack on the road to recovery, the Miller family knew that the fight was not over yet, but they also knew that together they could overcome any obstacle. The miracle they had prayed for had finally arrived, and with it, a new chance at life and love. With Jack on the road to recovery, the Miller family's life started to resemble normalcy again. Hospital days were replaced with the comfort of home, where Jack, still weak but hopeful, received constant care. Sarah, exhausted but determined, realized their battle had simply taken on a new form. There was still much to be done, not only for their own family, but for others as well. One morning, as Sarah was in the kitchen fixing breakfast, she received a phone call that caught her off guard. "Sarah, this is reporter Claire Davis from Channel 5. We'd like to interview you and your family about Jack's incredible recovery. Your story is inspiring people across the country," Claire said. Sarah agreed, knowing that sharing their story could bring hope to others in similar situations. Later that day, the news crew arrived at the Miller household. Jack, still pale but with a smile on his face, sat beside Sarah while Emily and Noah watched eagerly. "Sarah, Jack, how do you feel after everything you've been through?" Claire asked, the camera capturing every emotion. Sarah took a deep breath before responding. "It was faith and love that kept us strong. I had moments of despair, but I always believed Jack would come back to us. And he did." Jack squeezed Sarah's hand, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Knowing my family was fighting for me, that an entire community was praying for me, gave me the strength I needed to keep going." The interview aired that night, and the response was overwhelming. People from all over the country sent messages of support and gratitude, sharing their own stories of struggle and triumph. Inspired by the wave of solidarity, Sarah made an important decision. The following week, she met with Pastor Thomas and other community leaders at the church. "We need to do more. I want to create a support center for families facing similar crises, a place where they can find the help and hope we found," Sarah said, her voice firm and determined. Pastor Thomas nodded, seeing the passion in Sarah's eyes. "You have our support, Sarah. Let's make this happen." With the help of the community and donations from across the country, the support center began to take shape. The old building in downtown Willow Creek was renovated and transformed into a welcoming haven for those in need. Sarah led the center with dedication, offering advice, resources, and a friendly shoulder to every family that walked through the doors. Emily, touched by her father's experience and miracle, began organizing regular benefit concerts to raise funds for the center. Her heartfelt performances continued to touch the hearts of many, bringing even more support to the cause. On a sunny afternoon, during the official opening of the Miller Support Center, Sarah stepped onto the makeshift stage in the garden, looking out at the crowd gathered to celebrate. Jack stood by her side, still fragile but smiling with pride. Emily held her guitar ready to play, and Noah watched with admiration. "Today is a day of gratitude and hope," Sarah began, her voice clear and full of emotion. "We've faced challenges we never imagined, but with the help of our faith, our community, and the love we have for each other, we've made it through. This center is a symbol that no one has to face their battles alone." The crowd applauded, tears of emotion shining in many eyes. Sarah continued, her voice steady. "We promise to help all those in need, just as we were helped. This is our new beginning, our new mission." Emily started playing a gentle, moving melody, and the crowd fell silent, absorbing every note. Emily's music, filled with love and hope, resonated in the hearts of all present, a vivid reminder of the miracle that had united the community. As the sun set, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, Sarah looked at her family, and everyone gathered there. She knew that despite all the challenges, they had found a new strength and purpose, and with that, they could face anything. The miracle of Willow Creek was not just Jack's recovery, it was the transformation of an entire community through the power of faith, love, and solidarity. And as the lights of the new center shone into the night, Sarah knew they were just beginning their journey of hope and compassion. If you enjoyed this story of resilience and faith, don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends. Leave your comments below, letting us know what you thought and how you would handle a situation like this. And of course, subscribe to our channel Moving Story Hour for more heartfelt stories like this one.